Well, welcome everyone. This is Reverend John Turner, and this is our first regular service of the new year, 2021, on January 10th, Sunday. We'll have a little bit of a New Year's Eve flavor here and continue to discuss our ability to make changes in our lives. But first, we'll have order of service. We're going to chant the Sambutsuge on page 33 in the service book. We're very lucky today to have a brand new musical offering. Sometimes I say it's a premiere, and I mean it's a premiere for our regular service only, but this is actually a world premiere. This has never been shown, so we're very lucky. We'll have selected saying on page 22, which will lead into our Dharma talk that I'll be giving in English. We'll close with the selected saying again, and then we'll have announcements. And this will conclude our service. So we'll begin to get ready for our Sutra chanting. I have a brand new bell here at home. It sounds great. I hope you notice it and enjoy it. So first we'll put our hands together in Gasho. Namandabats, 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 namandabats. Then we'll take our service book to our forehead and open to page 33. Kogen gege ejen mugok nyoze emyo muyo tosha nichigatsumani shuko enyo kaishitsu onpe yunyaku jumoku nyorai yogen chose murin shogaku daion koru jipo kaimon shonin sanmai chi e hitoku muryo shushoke jindai zennen shobutsu okai gujin jin no 空語外体無明欲ぬ生存用無人の死死人徳無量空空口内知恵人妙光明意相振動内戦願が差物在所可動生じ未不下脱不正上位解任精進如是三昧知恵以上合成特物不行志願一切空空一切内安形死有物百千六万無量内生修行五者供養一切死等諸物不如愚道賢者不逆非如五者諸物世界不不影無種節道光明師匠変死諸国妙税精進異人難路老が差物国大道一公衆奇妙道場調節国如内音任務闘争がと愛民到達一切実法来生心熱症状意図が国経楽安能古物神妙世が心象発願の意力少々欲実法生存知恵無下上路子孫知が信行経路心死小休読中願行精進忍辱不下南蛮打部南蛮打部南蛮打部南蛮打部南蛮打部南蛮打部願に宿読 Byodo se isai dohon bonai shin hojo an lako. Namandavats, 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 namandavats. Well, thank you very much for chanting the Sambutsige with me. And next on our order of service is this world premiere musical offering. This is by Eugene Scott, a member of the Orange County Buddhist Church. And I think this is kind of it looks like an electric ukulele. It has 4 strings. That was the tip off. And he created, like Hector Ortiz did a few months back, a sound bath. So this is an original composition of a sound bath. And a sound bath is something that I think has some tie-in with Jodo Shinshu. Sound is very important. We will listen to this. It will change the way we look at the world. It will calm our minds, and it'll help us see things differently. So here we go. Eugene Scott.
Hello, OCBC Sangha. I invite you to take in some notes and take in some breaths.
All right. Thank you very much, Eugene. That was really beautiful. It is like a bath of sound, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your offering of music to our service. So next, we are going to have selected sayings, as I mentioned. It is on page 22 under Contemporary Readings. This is Taking Refuge and the Three Treasures. And there's a little fortune cookie in here. There's a couple words in here that stand out, and I'm going to use that to pivot towards my Dharma talk. So please join me. Taking refuge, the three treasures. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha in myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love. Taking refuge in the Dharma in myself, I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation. Taking refuge in the Sangha in myself, I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Naman Dabuts, Naman Dabuts, Naman Dabuts, Naman Dabuts. So, this version of the three refuges, or the three treasures, is by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's kind of interesting how he did this. We actually repeat it 3 times. The first stanza, to me, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha is something out there. It's something objective. And then in the second stanza, it becomes something in the first person. It becomes something intimate, something that I do. It's something that I am practicing. And then in the last stanza, it's something that we find within ourselves. So we kind of go from objective reality to subjective, and then something very, very personal and internal. So I like the way he transitions those 3 stanzas. Each one is the 3 treasures, but from a deeper perspective. And I wanted to mention that at I think at the Vista Buddhist Temple, somebody came up to me after service and they asked me, what is this fourfold communities that's mentioned at the bottom of the page? And I'd been repeating this for years, and I never really thought much about it. And it's something very important. The fourfold communities is the Buddhist Sangha. It is how we practice as a community. And so, but why is it 4? Where does this 4 come from? So we're going to discuss that today. There's 4 communities, and there's 2 ways of practicing. And so in the spirit of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and New Year's week and month, I wanted to talk about destiny. Oftentimes it feels like our destiny is fixed and that our personality is fixed. And it's very hard to change who we are. So a famous scholar, Dr. Walter Mischel, once said, a marshmallow is not your destiny. It's not your density either. So we will see where this comes from. It's one of my favorite quotes. And it comes from a podcast called The Personality Myth. So Walter Mischel, a behaviorologist, believed that our personalities are much more fluid and malleable and dynamic than we believe they are. And the problem is that his research kind of got reinterpreted in this culture of ours that is always looking for permanence and inner character and a fixed sense of being. Walter Mischel said that when he first started doing his research, he read all the literature and he really couldn't find any proof of any permanent overriding self throughout one's lifetime. The psychological tests and sociological studies seem to show that people weren't fixed, but somehow this got lost in the popular culture. it got excised or ignored. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where this quote comes from. What is this marshmallow you speak of? So here's this little girl. This is an example of the marshmallow test. They take a young child, maybe 4 years old, 5 years old, and they place a single marshmallow in front of them. And they tell them, I'm going to leave the room, but if you can wait until I get back and not eat the marshmallow, you get 2 marshmallows. So I think this is extra hard. When they leave the room, you're all on your own, and you have to just rely on yourself. The other problem is you don't know how long they're going to be gone for. If it was 5 minutes, I might be able to do it. If it's 15, probably not. So not knowing is difficult. And so the idea was in popular culture, and you may remember John Stossel from maybe 2020 on ABC. He did a story about this, about the marshmallow test, and how this was a powerful indicator at a very young age of the type of personality we have. So the idea is if you can't wait and you eat the marshmallow, you lack self-control, you lack discipline, you're unable to delay your own gratification. And in some sense, you failed the test. But if you can wait, then you're a person who has discipline, who thinks about future return on investment, and is not maybe so spontaneous and is maybe a bit more well thought out. So I think I would pass this test, even though I was very energetic and impatient as a child. The secret is I don't really like marshmallows that much. So there's some missing controls in this experiment. For me, it would have to be Oreo cookies. So the idea is here that the poor girl on the left is somebody that couldn't wait to eat her marshmallow. And this young man on the right, who gets 2 marshmallows, he was able to wait. And the idea is this is kind of a predictor of your personality that will exist over time. This is the idea of a personality myth, of something fixed. This revealed something about you that's innate. So this 2 marshmallow boy over here, in theory, at least in popular culture, he's going to make more money. He's going to do better at school because he'll study for finals. He'll have a better credit score. He likely won't shoplift. He'll wait until he has the money to buy things. And this poor young girl grows up to the woman on the left, who it looks like she has a broken heart. She doesn't have as much money. And in the worst case, she even ends up in trouble legally because she just doesn't have the kind of personality that can wait and delay gratification. And Walter Mischel, this is him on the left, he says that this entire interpretation of the marshmallow test is totally upside down. And this is kind of a process that he noticed with all scholarly papers and studies, is that the dynamic nature is lost with our preconceived notions of permanence. We may not think we have a permanent soul in Buddhism, but we sure think we have a permanent personality and that our behavior is permanent and we have certain traits we carry with us throughout our life. And Walter Mischel says this is the great personality myth. And what he found was that by talking to a child and reframing their experience, you could radically change their behavior. So children were incredibly susceptible to suggestion. So if he said, instead of thinking about that marshmallow as a sweet, soft piece of candy, think of it as a picture, or think of it maybe as just a cylinder of styrofoam, then the child could wait well past 5 minutes, well past 15 minutes. And so what he found was the power of suggestion, of framing the way the child saw the situation had a huge impact on their behavior. So what he found is we are very fluid, dynamic, and malleable. And we are so in 2 distinct ways. One is our situation. So he says he gets pushback once in a while where people will say, if personality really is dynamic, then why does my mother always act like my mother? And he would say that you are correct. You are sensing permanence, but it's not in your mother's personality. It's in the permanent situations that you engage with her. The context of your relationship remains permanent, and therefore her personality expresses itself seemingly in a permanent way. He would say that if you could see your mother in Las Vegas with her girlfriends on a weekend girls' night out, he said you'd likely to see her having much different personality, much different behavior. And you might even say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's my mother. But he also said there's another way of changing our personality besides changing circumstance. You can also change the way you see the world. The facts on the ground remain the same, but the way you see things changes. And by seeing things differently, you have effectively changed the way you experience your surroundings. And so in a sense, you've changed your situation by changing the way you interpret your surroundings. So I have a short clip for you. It's 2 minutes. There is a invisibility podcast called The Personality Myth that you can get to on the internet. It's about 20-30 minutes long. This is a YouTube summary. I trimmed it down to 2 minutes for people that don't have long attention spans. But this will give you a sense of what Walter Mischel has been trying to teach over his lifetime. He recently passed away. It might have been 2015, but his work still is with us, and it can really change the way we see the world. So I thought this was kind of cute. Our Oreo woman, she waited for her Oreos, and she's become a video intern somewhere and very successful. We could use one at OCBC right now during COVID. But we have a great AV staff that's helping us now. So I wanted to show you that in Buddhism, this also carries over. There are 2 ways of practicing. You can either literally, physically change your situation, or you can mentally change your situation by seeing it differently. So again, taking refuge in the Sangha, in myself, I aspire to help all people build 4 communities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. So here's the answer to that question that I didn't know. These are the 4 communities. The first one is for men, masculine. This is the term in India, bhikkhu. This is a monk. That's a Christian English word, but this is a monastic monk, male. And then we have the bhikkhuni, the female, nuns. So this is the monastic tradition for Buddhism. And now we have the other side of the house. So 1 and 2 leave their homes. They're no longer householders, and they move away and they live in a monastery, in a communal style way of learning Buddhism. This is a radical change of circumstance for these people. But what about the people who can't move away? I can get a new job. I can change careers. There are things I can do, but moving to another state, there's a lot of things that are beyond my control. My age, my upbringing. So how do I change my situation beyond superficial physical ways for an everyday person? And they have that in India as well. This is called the upasaka, masculine, householder, everyday person. And then we also have the female, upasika, feminine. So here are our 4 communities, masculine and feminine, people that go away and live in a monastic setting, and people that practice at home. So let's look at these 4 communities again, using terms that are maybe a bit better translations in English than monastic, monk, nun. Sometimes I got confused. I thought of the Buddhist monastic tradition as being ascetic, but it's not. That's extreme minimalism that he practiced before he realized awakening under the Bodhi tree. So asceticism was what the Buddha did before awakening, and then afterwards, a monastic tradition developed. So that's something much different. So monastic is an English term, a Christian term, and it conjures up definitions of solitary and silent reflection. This is not Buddhism. This is why monastic is probably not a good term, and we should stick with the Indian terms. The best English term is a mendicant. It's someone who lives outside of everyday life and practices begging. Everything they get is given to them. They go out and humbly beg and take offerings. It's the everyday people that help sustain them. And then they practice communally within monastic tradition, a mendicant tradition. It's communal living, communal eating, chanting, lectures, practice. It's kind of like going off to school. And then what about people like us, Jodo Shinshu? Where's our community? What kind of language would we use? One word in India is the Shravaka. This means to listen alone. Some scholars think that this was added because the Buddha was in some sense a Shravaka. He went out on his own. He was a Ronin. He practiced on his own. He wasn't part of a mendicant community. And especially as an ascetic, he was certainly on his own. Another classification in the sutras, they often use the word householder. I'm a householder, but in the Buddhist sutras, it has a different meaning. If you owned a house in ancient India, you were pretty rich. Most people didn't own property or have homes. And so householders in Buddhist texts usually are donors or patrons. They are very well off. So what about the rest of us? I'm a householder, but not in this sense. So we might call it a lay disciple, might be a good term in English, or a lay student. It's someone who takes part in everyday practice. We listen to the Dharma. We read. We say Namo Amida Butsu under our breath. We're mindful and aware throughout the day. And so here are our four communities. There are those men and women who are able to physically change their situation in a very radical way. You could move to India, but the Dalai Lama in one of the books I read said, stay at home. Don't go learn any new languages. Don't move to China or India or Nepal. Stay where you are and just practice Buddhism. So in a strange sense, we have a mendicant suggesting we take another path. Rather than literally changing our circumstance, why don't you figuratively, emotionally, mentally change the situation all around you by looking at it differently? And these are the two ways that Walter Mischel discussed. And I think he thought the secret was, if you watch the or listen to the entire podcast, the secret was you can all do all of this without leaving home. By reframing, reimagining, reconstruing your world and yourself, this is how we can make great change in our lives. And this is the everyday practice of Pure Land Buddhism. So this is the secret to having your New Year's resolutions take hold and be very effective. All you have to do is look at things differently. You just need to listen to the Dharma and reinterpret your world, and suddenly it shines with brand new meaning. So if you could please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So this concludes my Dharma talk. A marshmallow is not your destiny. If you ate it at 5 or didn't, it doesn't portend failure or success. Personality is malleable. It's dynamic. It's another myth of permanence that is very pervasive in our American culture. So to close, I would like to read again our selected saying, taking refuge in the three treasures, moving from kind of an objective sense to something a bit more subjective, to something that becomes us. It is who we are by joining one of these four communities. And for me, it's male every day. And for you, it might be female every day. But this is the community we're in. This is our karma. And it's a secret that Walter Mischel discovered by studying personality. Taking refuge, the three treasures. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha in myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love. Taking refuge in the Dharma in myself, I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation. Taking refuge in the Sangha in myself, I aspire to help all people build four communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So maybe a New Year's resolution would be to go all in on this wonderful Pure Land community that we're able to practice in and together. So I would like to close with an announcement. This is our Dharma School online schedule. They meet on alternate weeks. This January 10th, the class meetings will be Fuji, 1st grade, Kiku, 5th grade, Sumire, 6th grade, Hasu, 7th grade, and Matsu, high school. We'll be meeting today after service online. So I want to thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate your presence. It helps me look at things in a new and brighter way. Let's have a happy and successful 2021. Please join me in closing Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.